pbmusa.org. That's pbmusa.org.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the flag.
Communism is so often described as an ideology or a belief that exists somewhere other than in the United States. Let me ask you, sir, just how serious a threat to our national security are these communist subversive activities in the United States today?
Well, I think they're serious. I think it's a matter that we should continue to give great care and attention to. We should support the laws which the United States has passed in order to protect us from those who would destroy us from within. We should sustain the Department of Justice in its efforts and the FBI, and we should be continually alert. I think if the United States is maintaining a strong society here in the United States, I think that we can meet any internal threat. The major threat is external and will continue.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. It conducts the Cold War, in short, with a wartime discipline no democracy would ever hope or wish to match. Nevertheless, every democracy recognizes the necessary restraints of national security. And the question remains whether those restraints need to be more strictly observed if we are to oppose this kind of attack as well as outright invasion.
You realize there's no such thing. You buy into this talk that there is a philosophy, there is a political system in communism. There is no such thing. It is only occupied, stoked, promoted by the covetous, by the unable, by the unfit, by the true face of greed in America.
Did you know that one of history's most influential and controversial figures, Karl Marx, once worked as a journalist for an American newspaper? Yes, the father of communism himself was a regular correspondent for the New York Daily Tribune in the 1850s. It's one of those fascinating historical ironies that the man who would go on to write the Communist Manifesto was earning his living writing for a capitalist newspaper in the heart of American capitalism. Marx wasn't just any contributor. He was actually one of the paper's most popular European correspondents. From his home in London, he would write detailed analyses of European politics, the economy, and social issues. His articles covered everything from the Crimean War to British colonial rule in India. The paper paid him about $10 per article, which would be worth about $300 today. But here's the really interesting part. Many of his articles were actually written by his friend and collaborator Friedrich Engels. Marx, perpetually struggling with poverty and health issues, would sometimes ask Engels to ghostwrite his columns.
Doesn't even exist. It's all a lie. My next guest wrote a book about this, America's 100-Year War, How to Win It Against Communism. You see, if anybody knows, it would be my next guest, who understands the present danger we face in the Chinese Communist Party, and moreover, present danger we face right here in our own government. He held fellowships at Harvard University, University of Oxford, widely published author, commentator in a broad range of interests, author of the new book, America's 100-Year War, How to Win Against Communism. He is Dr. Bradley Thayer. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
John, I'm doing great. How are you tonight? I hope you're doing well.
I am. And this is something that we need to focus. This is an organized system of the destruction of the principles that made us the youngest, the richest country, but moreover, the highest quality of life among all citizens, should they choose to participate. And as I see it, that's the one real flaw with capitalism, as it's called by Marx, is that it has one flaw and one flaw only. You actually have to participate. Communism, you don't. Communism, you don't have to do anything other than exist, and you are entitled. It is really the definition of greed, as I see it. I'm wondering if that came up in your research.
Well, it did. Really, the communist worldview, of course, is anti-American. It's antithetical to everything that we value as Americans, as President Trump has identified. As you know, Shaun, for the last few weeks, of course, he's made this a major issue, describing the difference between communism and the American way of life, American ideology and American values. And not a moment too soon from my point of view. He needs, I'm so glad that he's calling attention to it, and he's using the bully pulpit to make the argument of my book, really, that, there's communism and then there's Americanism. And as Trump said, you can either be a communist or you can be an American. It's that simple. It's that straightforward, and we need to recognize that.
You know, I'm curious to know if we are partially to blame. And when I say we, I mean the American culture as it is. After all, we adopted liberty. We inherited liberty. Liberty was something we were given. And what we don't understand is that there is no such thing as capitalism as it's talked about in Das Kapital and all the rest of it. What it really is propertyism. The property rights over your life, your work, and your earning. When the other is nothing more than an infringement on other people's property. I don't understand why. Should we break it down to the most basic principle of the beauty of what our system is and why it delivers the highest quality life to the ordinary man, no matter what color he is, no matter what his genitalia is, no matter what his sexual proclivity is. We are the greatest success story in the world, and we're the youngest country. Why are so many people fighting that rather than embracing it?
I think people are doing that because they don't understand really what communism is anymore. And the attitude that they have towards it is actually shaped by the communists themselves because, as you know, they've taken over the educational system, the universities, K through 12 education for so long. So folks in their teens, their 20s, their 30s have never been exposed to any type of recognition of what this evil ideology is. So I think that's, again, so incumbent upon us. I'm an older folk, and it's important for folks my age to teach, to instruct, as President Trump's trying to do, younger generations about what's really going on here. And that there's no free lunch. There never is, and there never has been. And communism is not about redistributing property. It's about power, and it's about tyranny. And that's why inevitably it's going to lead to tears and blood. If you follow the communist path, as has happened in every country where it's ever been tried, it's going to lead to a disaster. So Americans need to appreciate what they have, what our forebears gave us, and what we need to pass on to our progeny, which is a free society, the best society in the world, anchored in the best civilization, Western civilization that's ever existed. We need to appreciate that and teach others, Americans in particular, about that.
So you know how, first of all, you do not sound a day over 30, Dr. Bradley Thayer. Not a day over 30. Well, you sound like a wonderful, young, robust man. But do you know how I knew you were older? Because I also know that you had fellowships at Harvard University and Oxford, which means you are an anomaly even now, when these institutions, and so many like them, are really the ones who put the lipstick on the pig of the redistribution of feudalism, poverty, and misery, communism and socialism. These institutions that you really attended that used to be beacons of intellect, thought, understanding, and the always forever growing science of knowledge in every aspect. When did they become such an incubator for this philosophy that has destroyed everywhere it touched. This must offend you most of all.
It does indeed, and it happened over the last 50 years or so because the communists targeted the ideas industry. They recognized the importance of seizing control of the places where ideas are taught, ideas are made, and where they're sustained, and that's our K through 12 educational system and our universities. If you control those, you're going to control young people. And if you control young people in time, you'll control middle age and then older folk. So what Trump is trying to do, and what I argue in my book, is we need to regain control of our educational system. That's so important for us to achieve, and time is short to do it. So absolutely essential to do.
Well, what's interesting, too, is, you look at I call it the Fourth Reich. What we face today is not a Democrat party. It's not a Democrat socialist party. And communism is an interesting word, but to me, it all is embodied with their willingness to deny fact, their willingness to enforce this kind of fascism, to take away your right to rebut them. And I really view this as, in this country, by far the most dangerous time. And I'm well aware of before World War II, how the Nazis sold out Madison Square Garden, or how there were always communists to a certain extent since the time Karl Marx worked for the New York Daily Tribune. This is something that we've faced throughout the years. But I don't think it's ever had the kind of propaganda it has today. So it's a multi-front issue. And I'm wondering if you feel it's because they cut in these institutions that used to teach higher learning, but now they're very, very rich. When you went to Oxford, it had not half of the money it has now. Harvard, forget about it. Harvard was broke compared to what it is now. And yet it produces the real architects and the distributors of the American Fourth Reich. Do you think it was really an example of just cutting in these so-called higher institutions on their greed and their thirst for both power, but moreover money? Because after all, it's really a hedge fund that sometimes has classes, isn't it?
It is. I think you're right that it is an existential threat, and it's the gravest peril. Again, Trump has said this, right, that it is the gravest peril that we face. It's an existential threat, and it's happening right now. We see that with Mondami, the acceptance of the democratic socialists of America. We see that with victories, of course, that they've had in Colorado as well as in New York, and the growing muscle of the movement. But I think to get to your point, absolutely, that there's an element of money, and that's provided by George Soros, right? It's provided by the Chinese Communist Party, working through front organizations, but it's also like folks like Soros and Neville Roy Singham, who explicitly is a communist living in Shanghai. Steve Jobs' widow, the Emerson Foundation, right? Yes. You've got a lot of these groups. You've got Tides, Arabella. You have a lot of front organizations that are driving this. Universities and the ideas industry are a problem, but we also need to recognize that the way communists move is through also these front organizations backed by these billionaires like Jobs' widow and Singham and Soros.
Yes. Do you know what's interesting too, Doctor? I'm sure you figured this out. These foundations that they say they have, they really don't operate on their money. I love the way that people think that they're all magnanimous. George Soros isn't magnanimous. He's never done anything. He never spent a dime he didn't think he could make $2 on. And they open up these institutions. They take advantage of vestibules of liability and protection and tax avoidance. They open them up. They put $10 million in it, but it's our policy money that is crafted and created to go into the foundation and be used over and over and over again. And when you really look at what we've faced since Barack Obama, an anomaly himself, an enigma, a fraud. He's not from Chicago. He was raised in Indonesia. But when you look at what he's done to our debt and to our foreign policy and to our policy of entitlement spending, and you look at the insane amount of money that has been added on the backs of American people. It's called debt, but what is it really? It's the guarantee of future taxation, the guarantee of future tyranny from your government. And when you look at 18 years and this insane amount of money, and you look at it go out the door as policy money and come back through these entities, NGOs. You remember being young. Did you ever hear of an NGO? You were a lot smarter than me. I didn't hear of it. And then you look at the way they avoid any kind of scrutiny, and you look at the policy in USAID, and you look at these entities like Act Blue, which is what exactly? That is a communist think tank, a communist exchange bank, and they are getting money and they are funding it. And who gets to have the oversight are the very people who are beneficiaries of this. So I get this all the time from people, right? We've identified the problem. We've identified the $30 trillion. So this isn't necessarily just the boogeyman of what we say is communism, or even the true face of it and how it looks, and if it's in China or if it's in the former Soviet Union or Cuba. This is really from right there in Washington, D.C. And these 535 politicians who have orchestrated this scheme of what appears to be a legitimate policy, but really is nothing than enriching an ideology. How do we attack this successfully when they're the ones in charge of it all?
Yeah, I think that the corruption is rife. There's and the resources that they have and the way that they target it. Right, these NGOs are very specific about they target the representatives and senators, no doubt about it, and their staffs, but they also have such tremendous influence in the media, and they have tremendous influence really in the deeper government, in the deep state, as President Trump has identified. That it makes it, of course, it's a formidable adversary, and it's in part why it's such an existential threat that we face. Now, it's coming together where what was hidden, folks used to not admit that they were communists, right? Now they're proudly admitting they're communists, right? And so in the Democratic Party, in DSA, it just shows how deep and how formidable this threat is, and it's right now. And if we don't right the ship in terms of calling attention to this and taking policies to stop it, we're in dire straits. And I would just add, Shaun, too, you remember Southern Poverty Law Center, right?
Oh.
And how they've been caught out,
Yes.
in terms of funding. Organizations that are committed to stop. I mean, it's almost, it's surrealistic.
It's comedy. It almost is comedy. Southern Poverty Law Group, which pretends to fight for the righteousness of racial abuse, is actually funding the KKK. No writer on Saturday Night Live has been that funny for 30 years, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I would say 40 years, actually, in the case of Saturday Night Live. But it's been a long time. But no, that's exactly right. And it shows how they operate, right, which is the Bolsheviks had an expression, the worse, the better, right? They wanted conditions to be bad. They wanted there to be crises, unrest, difficulty, because that was better for them, right? More likely that they were going to achieve power. And when you look at the Democrats, for example, the State of the Union address in February that President Trump gave, and they wouldn't stand for those American heroes, right?
Yes.
Well, that's the worse, the better, right? They're not interested in America. They're not interested in helping America. They're interested in overthrowing America. That's why they don't celebrate American heroes, right? That's not why they're not celebrating the strength and good deeds of the United States, but in fact celebrating everything that makes it weaker, more divided, and separate. So we need to see that.
Well, yeah, right. I think that's the beauty, right? There's a silver lining. There's always a silver lining. And the beauty of what we now live through is, number one, we have a tremendous amount of vehicles, venues, mediums, like the one we're on right now, and so many others on the internet, and the way in which even social media companies have given a platform to guys like me and you, and how your book will sell. So I honestly believe we're going to win. Number one, it's the only right answer. And sooner or later, you may live through terrible times and through terrible areas, but there's only one right answer. You could dilute yourself with the notion you can compromise with wrong. You can't. And these areas now in our country, when you talk about Mamdani, well, of course, he's only the natural transition and the result of what would happen in a corrupt theocracy like California, kleptocracy, really, where they just steal the money and the rest of it. Same thing in Chicago, same thing in New York or New Jersey. And that's the beauty of what we live in. It's obvious now. These are the areas where the quality of life is substandard, where civilization has degenerated so low that you think you're celebrating a weekend in Chicago where 40 people get shot or 23, whatever the case is. So ultimately, we've got the best time to show. Do you want to live like a ghetto rat in a hopeless, feudalist society like New York, like Chicago, like parts of California, like New Jersey? Or do you want to live free? And this is on us now. And either we can pretend we can compromise with these scallywags, or we identify them and we refuse to compromise. That's really the beauty of Trump. If you really look, he talks about a deal, but ultimately, he's not really compromising with it more than he has to. And that's what we need to focus on, isn't it?
It is. We need to recognize what I call in the book the American Trinity, which is to have a rebirth of that. That's the American spirit, to recognize that Americans are unique people. We were created by some great men in 1776, but we also have an identity, our values, our culture, right? Everything from baseball to the recognition of the greatness of the land, to the spirit that animates us, the recognition that, you know, what we've done, what we've sacrificed for, we owe to our grandparents, to our great-grandparents, to those who came before us, and we have to pass it on to our progeny. It's also, the second element of the Trinity is our ideology of political liberalism, a belief in freedom, the
Correct.
rule of law, the fact that we've got rights. Those rights are given to us by God, and they're enshrined in our Constitution and Bill of Rights and other amendments. That has to be celebrated. And then thirdly, the third component is Western civilization, that we stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on those in our civilization who generated the art, the architecture, the music, the literature, but also the thought, to give us a scientific way of thinking, to give us our ideas and our beliefs that allowed our founding fathers to convert that into the best form of government that's ever existed. That has to be appreciated.
And they gave us law. They gave us law.
Did.
And this ultimately, I've always felt this way. I'm curious to know your thoughts on it because you've been dealing with this your whole life. We've compromised with communism. We just don't call it communism. And it's our fault for doing it. But the law is, communism is illegal. I truly look at these policies, from Obamacare to Social Security to unemployment insurance, all the rest of it. I think none of it is constitutional. Do you think maybe we should fight that? And we need to fight that. Because if we don't, the only other recourse ultimately is violence. And we don't have to do that. The Constitution and the principles of our nation guarantee us to not be cast into servitude for our fellow American. Don't you think we need to fight it on the principles of what this country really is before we go to war?
Right. And that's what Trump is saying, right? When he's saying you could be an American or a communist, right? If you believe in the American spirit, if you believe in our liberties, our freedoms, if you believe in our institutions, and if you believe in Western civilization, then you're an American. Absolutely. And if you want to destroy those things, you're on the other side, right? You're on the side of the communists. And that's something that he recognizes, and I think more and more Americans are recognizing. They're seeing the true face of the Democratic Party in a way that it was always a little bit covered. Your point about Obamacare is exactly right. You know, the communists advance by salami tactics. They're not going to go right away. He wants you to be dependent on the government for health care. So you have Obamacare, right? And it was up to Roberts to stop that, right? If Roberts, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, John Roberts,
I remember.
It was up to him to stop it, or Amy Coney Barrett to stop birthright citizenship. You can't have a republic where you have birthright citizenship, where you could have Chinese citizens, communist Chinese citizens, delivering a child here, but flying back to China. Maybe the infant never set a foot on American soil.
Yes.
And that person in 18 years will be voting. That person in 18 years will be voting in a U.S. election as you are, or as I am, or the audience is. And you can't have a republic based on that. So why do you have Supreme Court justices yield?
You know what else is a wonder? Well, it's because they're corrupted in one form or another. But you know what's fascinating? We have all these countries that practice communism. You have China. Nothing's bigger than China. Go to China. All these countries that practice it. Yet none of the American communists or the imported communists, those are my favorite one, communists with an accent. You don't want to go to those countries. You just want to ruin mine. I love the idea you wrote the book. I cannot wait to get it. Now, the book, America's 100 Years War, How to Win Against Communism, it doesn't come out till next month on the 18th. Where's the best place to go to make you and your publisher very, very happy as we all buy your book.
Well, Shaun, folks can go wherever they buy books. So Barnes & Noble or Amazon or elsewhere. It's going to be available widely. And I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to talk with your audience and you about that this evening. And also grateful to Steve Bannon for writing the foreword to it. He really did a great job.
Really?
In lighting folks up and really explaining some of the importance of the book, too. So greatly appreciate it.
I can't wait to get the book. I'm going to get it. I'm going to order it myself, and then I'm going to have you send me one that you sign because I can't wait to meet you. I love the idea of what you represent because you represent a time when people were educated in the proper way to think, not how to betray their nation or to destroy Western civilization. I mean, you are an honor to these universities, which up until, a handful of decent people have been hot button topics because they work so tirelessly to promote what you fight against. So I love the fact that you represent a time in America and a time in education when smart people knew right and wrong. It has truly been a pleasure, Dr. Bradley Thayer. Thank you for making time, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Shaun, I look forward to meeting you as well. And let's hope that we'll once again return to that time. We'll once again return to the time where Americanism can be embraced.
Well, you're not going to get me. If I got to be communist, I'm going to do it where I can see all of my ancestors I miss dearly. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
Broadcasting from the petri dish of corruption known as the state of Illinois.
In the upper Midwest, the nation, and around the world.
This is the Shaun Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.
Hi, my name is Dr. Michael Huber. During cold and flu season, a nearby cough or sneeze can trigger a familiar dread, that helpless feeling of being defenseless against an invisible viral threat. But what if you could change the narrative? What if you could fortify your body's natural defenses? This is why I developed Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail designed to give your body the upper hand. Virago is more than a supplement. It's a revolutionary liquid formula packed with 23 powerful natural nutraceuticals for rapid absorption. This unique blend is scientifically crafted to help build resilience and keep you protected. Don't just hope for good health. Make it happen with Virago. Virago and Maha, making America healthy again.
Virago. Order your bottle today online at myvirago.com and use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. myvirago.com. Coupon code IMMUNE.
We work a lifetime to build a legacy for our families, but the most enduring gift you can give them is the peace of mind you provide when they need it most. When you pre-plan your arrangements at Catholic Cemeteries of Chicago, you replace the weight of uncertainty with the gift of clarity. Secure today's costs and protect your family from making emotional and financial decisions at the time of need. It's a final act of love they'll never forget. Visit CatholicCemeteryChicago.org or call 708-236-50